English, and if you click the interpretation button, it will be there, but feel free to ask questions in English or Spanish or whatever your language might be, and we will do our best to answer them the best that we can.
And we will have points in the presentation where we will stop for Q&A. So we will stop for questions. So don't worry, you don't have to sit through the whole thing before asking your question. We will have some stopping points as well. Para los que recién están con nosotros, si están en un iPad, en el parte de abajo hay un globo. Si aplastan el globo, pueden seleccionar el idioma español y se les va a traducir automáticamente. Si están en una computadora, en la parte arriba a la derecha, hay 3 botones, algo que dice Interpretation, y ahí pueden escoger español.
Su micrófono es silencioso.
All right, it is 3:32. We have 43 families, which is amazing. So Allison, let's get started.
All right, thank you everyone for being here. I know this is kind of an odd way to get together, but we are very, very appreciative of all of you. One thing I would like to ask to start is for everyone to please stay on mute, just so we can ensure that we can hear everybody clearly. And there will be times where everyone will be able to ask questions, and you can always type in the chat. And for those who are on Facebook Live, because I do see some of you with us there, you can type in the comments and we will make sure to get to all of those. But for now, please ensure that you mute your microphone. But now we will begin. Welcome to our Burton Elementary School Return to Learn parent meeting. It has been kind of an exciting week, I think, for everyone at this point. But we're trying to look ahead a little bit and give you guys as much information as possible with the information that we have right now. So let's begin. This is probably one of our most important slides, is that this could all potentially change. So right now, what we are presenting is our plan to transition to hybrid in person and 100% virtual on January 4th. So that means that some people have chosen hybrid and some people have chosen to remain virtual starting on January 4th. Because of everything happening with COVID and directions from the Center for Disease Control, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and our Kent County Health Department, all of this can change depending on what's happening with the virus. We do have a data dashboard coming up in the presentation that will show you guys how decisions are being made in the future. And this will be available to parents at all times. So we'll talk about that more later. And our hope is to be able to inform all of you of the final plans for January 4th by December 17th, which is our last day before winter break. So December 17th will be a very important day for all of us.
And as always, we have slides in English and Spanish, so we'll pause for a second. If anything in that slide while we pause to the Spanish version, you have a question about, just type it in the chat. Looks like we have something in the chat already, Allison.
We've already taken care of it.
Okay.
Adi was just helping us with.
Perfect. I can't, it's hard when I'm sharing.
Yeah, I got you, don't worry.
All right, so as many of you may or may not know, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services on November 18th placed a new order, which kind of put us on a little bit of restrictions. Things that are still open are 2 household gatherings with very high precautions, small outdoor gatherings, retail by appointment. Preschool through 8th grade is the big one. That's by district choice. And, you know, that's come into a lot of question. I would say later when you see our Kent County dashboard that we're going to show you, you're going to understand why a lot of schools in Kent County aren't necessarily following that. Childcare is still open, public transit, a lot of the things that you're used to using and used to doing are still open currently, just with slightly higher precautions. Things that might not be open, our high schools are all in-person learning. Many middle schools are beginning to transition to that. Colleges and universities are also in person. Workplaces, when you can work from home, It's suggested and encouraged to do that, hence why Ms. Woodside and myself are both in our homes working. The district is being very safe and cautious with their staff, which is amazing. Restaurants and bars are indoor only, as well as organized sports. So if you have a son or daughter, older or 5th grade, 6th grade, that is in sports, sadly, their season's currently on pause, and we'll see what happens with that. But this is a slideshow that we'll share, and you guys can take a look. This is all over the internet in English and Spanish as well. All right, so in my opinion, this is one of the most important slides we're going to share today. I want to go over a little bit more in depth both of our options for our return to learn, whether that be January 4th or later. We have 2 options. We have hybrid, which is in person, where depending on your last name, your household members, we put you in either cohort A, which is Monday and Tuesday, or cohort B, which is Thursday and Friday. A couple quick things about that I want to explain. When we were creating the cohorts, we started with alphabet. You know, one of the hardest things to do in creating cohorts is ensuring that we're keeping every student safe. And so we started with A to M, and then N to Z, and then we went by household. So let's say that you have multiple families in a household, you have cousins that live with you. We made sure that every household was in the same cohort as well. And then to add one more layer, we went to middle school and high school to the best of our ability. And so ideally, in your family, you will all be in the same cohort. That way we slow the spread. We make sure that nobody gets exposed to a different cohort. And I know some of the questions have been, can we change cohorts? And sadly, the answer to that is no. The cohort you're placed in, if you chose hybrid, is due to those facts. But one thing I do want to share between hybrid and 100% virtual is that we got to make sure we understand what the schedule is. So let's say I choose hybrid. Virtual learning isn't easy for me. This is a hypothetical story, excuse me, and I really want my students to be back in school. And that's completely understandable. So let's say I'm in cohort A. My students will come back on Monday and Tuesday. They'll have full in-person learning on Monday and Tuesday with a lot of restrictions, which we'll explain. But then the thing to know and remember is that on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, your student will have full asynchronous days. And what that means is that they will not have any live interactions with teachers for the most part. On Wednesday, they might have some small group work for those days. So if you choose hybrid, understand that that doesn't mean you're done with virtual learning. You'll be coming to school on Monday and Tuesday or Thursday and Friday, but then you're gonna have 3 full days of asynchronous work where your hybrid teachers are gonna be teaching the other cohort those other days. So they won't be able to come on virtually and help you like they do now. Whereas if you choose the 100% virtual option, you will have a virtual teacher, much like you do right now, 4 days a week. And so you'll have a lot more support for that virtual learning atmosphere. So I just wanted to quickly make sure we understand those 2 different things. Allison, did you want to jump in real quick with anything there or just keep going?
Nope, just keep going. I think you summed that up really well,
Yep.
Mr. Vega.
So let's say I choose hybrid. So cohort A, I will come on Monday and Tuesday. I'll have a normal day in school. A quick note is that we're not going to really dive deep into everything that we have set up in the school. We will post different videos and have another meeting when we return to share all that. This would take a long time. Allison and I have been planning a lot and taping down lines and making sure it's safe. We'll get into that later. So you're coming to school on Monday and Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, you have full asynchronous days, which means you'll have an ELA lesson, so ReadyGen. You'll have a math lesson, Go Math. You'll have a science or social studies lesson, and then you'll be asked to do either Seesaw or a new program we're getting called Imagine Math. So those are 5 activities your student's going to be asked to do on those asynchronous days. If you choose the 100% virtual option, your days will look almost identical to what they are now, with the exception that it'll be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So at 9 o'clock, you'll log in, you'll have your live meeting and learning with your teachers. Your teachers will be on the whole time. You'll be asked to go to Seesaw, come back, much like you do right now. And so I think that's the 2 big differences between selecting hybrid in person and virtual, is that you do still have 3 days where your students will be home and they will be asked to be doing work on the computers, except there won't be as much teacher support because your teacher will be teaching the other cohort during those days. So I just want to make sure we understand fully, because I know some of our parents still have a decision to make based on if they want to switch to virtual or stay hybrid or whatever that is. So I'm going to quickly pause and see if there's any questions about that.
We don't have anything in the chat right now. We do not.
Okay, we'll just keep on keeping on. So we're going to quickly share, and again, remember all of these are subject to change. So our hybrid in-person teacher assignments for kindergarten, Ms. Briseño and Ms. Pena. For first grade, Ms. Berghardt and Ms. Weigman. For second grade, Mrs. Fales and Ms. Goebel. For third grade, Ms. Sanders and Ms. Reinhardt. For fourth grade, Mrs. St. Germain and Mr. Meir. For fifth grade, Ms. Pierce and Ms. Morton. Our virtual teachers are Ms. Hammond, Ms. Borson, Mrs. Glick, Mrs. Gilbert, Mr. Stack, and Mrs. Miguel. Is that a question, Allison, or is that just unmuted?
I think that was unmuted.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yep. You can use the chat button if you have questions. Should be at the bottom of the screen. There's a button that says chat. Hay un botón que dice chat.
Yep.
Please
the one thing I do want to mention is that we did our best when creating these cohorts to keep our students with their original teachers. We have an amazing staff here who is dedicated to the Burton students. And so some of them had to make a tough decision to stay virtual in order to keep all students at Burton. There are some schools that it's becoming very difficult for them to keep all their students in-house to make sure we can do that if they choose virtual. We have some amazing teachers that really stepped up and decided, okay, I'll come in person, or okay, I'll stay virtual for the Burton students. So I know you might not see your teachers if I'm choosing virtual. I might not have Ms. Fales, but I promise all of our teachers are amazing, and you can continue to ask us any questions you might have with that. Next. All right, Allison.
Okay, so one of the important things that we want to go over are the cleaning processes and procedures. So with school coming back in person, obviously the health of our students and staff is of utmost importance. So wearing masks, washing your hands, and practicing social distancing to the best of everyone's ability is going to be key to making sure that we are all safe. So cleaning and disinfecting, of course, reduces the risk of spreading the infection because it kills all of the germs on surfaces that we are frequently touching. So GRPS will actually be, will have a cleaning process and procedures plan that meets all of the health guidelines and directives. And some of those things are listed on this slide. So it includes increase routine cleaning and disinfection using approved products, really making sure that after something is used, we wipe it down and clean it immediately. So it'll either be something that's cleaned daily or something that's cleaned after every use, depending on what the item is. We are also going to be making sure that students aren't sharing objects, aren't really sharing anything at this point, to be completely honest, and we'll make sure that there are enough supplies for the students to have their own during this time when they're in school. And just making sure that Burton has a really great culture of washing your hands, and making sure that our daily routines include all of these things. Making sure hand sanitizer is available throughout the whole building, and make sure we know when and how to use it. So all of those things are very important, and we will be practicing that.
Looks like we got some.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, a couple of the chat questions have been, Burton Middle School, someone is asking if they will have a meeting. Thank you, Fotini. Their meeting is actually today from 4 to 6. It will probably be very similar, and I know there will be a recording. So if you want to stay with us right now, you will be able to watch the recording for Burton Middle School later on. And then we had another question about if a student has a current teacher, but you picked hybrid, will the teacher change? And more than likely, yes. So if your student's current teacher is now listed as a virtual teacher and you are hybrid, yes, you are going to move with one of those other teachers. So that is a great
and I'll
question.
jump in.
John, do you want to say
jump in
more
on
to that?
that. So two things. One, for the first question, the slideshows are pretty much identical, minus the few things like the schedule, and the teachers obviously are different for middle school and us. In terms of your question about changing, so when we were creating the cohorts, we did our best to make sure no students had to change teachers. But the fact of the matter is, because teachers were shifting classrooms, it did have to happen. So if your teacher was listed in virtual and you're thinking about coming back hybrid, then yes, you will change classrooms. The one thing I can say is we've had, we at Burton did a fantastic job of reaching out to every single family. We tried to get your commitment. So we have a realistic number of what our class sizes are going to look like. And so while you might have to change teachers, you're not joining a class of 25 kids. Currently, our class sizes with 6 feet distancing are no more than 14 or 15. And that's on the high end. Some are much lower.
And John, there was a clarifying question. Is that only for the in-school days or out as well? I think that's a good clarifying question.
So if you choose hybrid, the teacher you move to, so let's say I'm just gonna say I'm in kindergarten, and let's say Miss Hammond was my teacher, and I choose in person. I will no longer, for the time being that we're doing these cohorts, Miss Hammond will not be my teacher anymore. I will be with probably Miss Bersenio or Miss Pena. And so I will be with them in person, and then they will also give me assignments. So I will no longer have assignments from Miss Hammond. But what I can say is, after talking with our staff, they are excited about this opportunity, and I can promise you it's not like you won't see your teacher anymore. Your teachers will still jump in. They're going to make videos. I know a lot of our teachers are going to work as grade level teams to really supplement each other and make sure their students still know that they're there. I know that was one of the hardest things for our teachers when they had to make this decision. So to follow up with that question, no, you will not. If you had Miss Hammond, or if you had Ms. Glick, or if you had Ms. Borson, Ms. Migalski, or Mr. Stack, or Ms. Gilbert, sorry, you will not be their they will not be your teacher anymore if you choose hybrid. No. And I know that's a tough thing, but it's what's best for all the students at Burton.
Yep. And to answer a couple of questions in the chat, Ms. Hines, there will be transportation for hybrid students. We will mention that on a slide that is coming up. Actually, there's a whole slide about transportation. And Mr. Macias has asked, what are the class times going to be, and will there be a uniform? So our class times for those hybrid students on the days that they attend school will be the same as always. Yep. So 8:26 to 3:26. And then also we are still going to do uniforms.
Yep. So when and if we come back in person, for the hybrid learning students, the handbook is the handbook, is what the district's going with. And so all the rules will still be the same. Obviously, some things will change a bit, but yes, we still have to wear uniforms.
All right.
Okay. Is that all the questions in the chat?
As of right now, yes.
Awesome.
Oh, sorry, really quickly, if we choose 100% virtual, do we have to resubmit a request to remain virtual? No, you do not. Mm-hmm. If you are not changing your selection, you do not have to do anything. Great question.
Yep. To clarify for everybody, we sent out another round of letters stating your decision. The one thing that it didn't say on there that we're doing here at Burton, because what happened last time is there was a lot of messages sent to a lot of different people. And so I know a lot of you have amazing communication with your teachers, but we're asking that if you would like to change your decision from hybrid to virtual or whatever, please call the front office. I know that currently we're not in the front office, but our amazing secretaries and us have access to our voicemails, and we check them almost every hour. And so please, please, please call the front office if you're going to change. Don't just dojo your teacher or message them on Seesaw. Please call the front office or shoot Ms. Woodside specifically or myself a message on Dojo. All right. I'm going to flip over to the next slide so we can keep this going. And I'm going to have our amazing Spectrum nurse, Ms. Fatini Buck, join us, as she is going to talk about student symptoms, if she's here.
Yep, I'm here.
Just unmuted her.
Oh.
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name is Fatini Buck. I am the new school nurse at Burton. I speak a little Spanish, so hola, me llamo Fotini, estoy la enfermera a la escuela, and I need to practice more Spanish. So talk to me in Spanish, it's good. I'm gonna go over the student symptoms reminder. COVID can be misleading in the fact that it looks like a lot of other illnesses, especially ones that happen in the fall, like the flu. And bronchiolitis and other things like that. So if your child starts to develop symptoms this year, we are being much more strict as a district of sending them home so that we can keep just the healthy kids in school and we're not exposing anyone else to COVID. So things to look out for, especially in the elementary school age, because not every age group kind of experiences the same symptoms, is a cough, sore throat. You'll notice if they're having trouble breathing, kids this age won't be able to say that, but you'll notice that they're like flaring their nostrils. They may be like kind of tugging when they're breathing. Headaches, if they're holding their head and can't quite verbalize that, you'll notice if they're kind of like keeping their head down, squinting their eyes. If they have a fever, kids have fevers, and what we're categorizing is 100.4 or higher, but not everyone gets a fever with COVID. So if they're having chills without a fever, we would still want to know that that is one of their symptoms and keep an eye on that one. If they start developing like nausea or they're having a lot of vomiting and diarrhea, those things can also be considered COVID. And if you have high schoolers or teenagers at home, they tend to lose their taste and smell. That happens more with the older ages and with adults. So that is like a huge one with COVID. So there are 4 big reasons this year that we are encouraging you to keep your children home on the days if they're coming in for hybrid. So 1 is if they have any of these symptoms, keep them home, call the school, tell them I'm keeping my child home. These are the symptoms. They'll ask for your information, and then I'll probably be following up or someone just to make sure that if you need to go get COVID tested, you do that. If you need to talk to your doctor, you do that. 2, if you have anyone in your home who is a close contact, or you've been around anyone in the community who has COVID, so someone in your home with COVID or someone that you've been around recently with the children who has COVID, we would want you to stay home for that too, because those would be considered close contacts and would need to also quarantine. If someone in your household, parents, grandparents, siblings, got tested for COVID and is waiting for their results, keep them home. That's number 3. And then if you have gone outside of the country in the last 14 days, any international travel will have to quarantine for 14 days before coming back to school. So if you think that these symptoms that your child is having is not COVID, but something else, that's great, because other things do exist still besides COVID. So talk to your doctor, get a doctor's note saying this child has been tested for strep, they have strep, this is what their diagnosis is, and then they can come back to school. But we'll need some kind of documentation knowing that it's safe for them to be in school around their classmates.
Fotini, we actually have 2 great questions.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. So the first one I think is pretty straightforward. It's just if a student has asthma, one of their symptoms might be cough or the trouble breathing. Will they be able to stay in class? So how will we work with those students?
That's a great question. And that is something that we would need documentation from their doctor that they have the asthma condition. If you need and want to send me an email, you can get my information from the school. It's just, I think I'll put it in the chat if that's okay. And so send me an email, say this is my child's name, they have asthma, and then we'll start the paperwork now so everything is in place before they come back to school. We'll have to get a consent that we can talk to your doctor and also that they can have their inhaler in the classroom, because asthma is everywhere with kids and we don't want their known condition to keep them outside of school. Especially in the
a side note, can you also provide a contact number that they can reach you just in case they're unable to email you?
Yep, I'll put my school number on there and I'll be checking my voicemails regularly. I'm also working from home. So you'll leave a message and then I'll call you back. Okay.
And the second question, which I think is great, is if any of these symptoms, if my student has any of these symptoms, do they have to go stay home and be in virtual learning until they get better?
So if they have these symptoms, we would encourage them to get tested. If it's very looking like it could be COVID, we would want that so we could determine a coming back to school date. Their health department does have strict dates and parameters of if you have COVID, you have to be out for 10 days. If you don't, you wait for your symptoms to resolve for over 24 hours before coming back. So I would say the best is to be in close contact with the school and I'll help you work through that. Because we would want their symptoms. If we don't know what else it is, we're assuming it's COVID, we would want their symptoms to be clearing up before they come back to school. That's a great question. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, can I add to that a little bit? So I currently have a first grader and a kindergartner, and it's not easy. And I'll be honest with all of you parents and families out there. I've had to take a day off work because my son had a fever, or my daughter woke up with a cough, and it's just about doing the right thing to keep everybody safe. And it's tough. And the last thing you want is to send your kid or send your student, and then next thing you know, you're getting a call from the school saying, well, they have to be held in an isolation room because they have a couple symptoms. So, do your best to follow these. Call the school, the nurse. If you're on the fence, like, well, I don't know, he had a little bit of a cough, or it's just a little fever and it's kind of going away, talk to us. And if you're late to school, you're late to school, right? We're very flexible this year with all that stuff. And so I would rather have you be 100% certain and 100% safe if you should send your student, rather than sending them and having a potential exposure to everybody. And so while we know that it's going to happen, we're in the winter months, kids are going to get sick, they're going to have a cough after they run around at recess. We understand that. It's all about the due diligence at home and the effort we put into watching our children at home.
And one thing that I'm sure Fotini was going to get to, because we haven't quite finished the slide, but it's very, very important. If you are traveling outside of the country over winter break, your student has to stay in quarantine for 14 days from the day you return to the country. We know a lot of families for the holidays, for Christmas break, New Year's, do tend to travel to other countries. So when you come back, you will have to stay home for 14 days before your student is able to come. If that is the case, once again, call us at the school, leave a message, and let us know so that we can make sure to mark their attendance correctly.
Yep. All right. Sorry to interrupt, Fatini. Keep going.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that was all great. The last thing on here is that if you send your kid you send a healthy kid to school, and while they're at school, they get a cough, then they start getting the chills, and then they have a fever, they will need to go to the health office. We will keep them there and call you to come pick them up as quickly as possible. If a kid has symptoms, I'm pretty sure Mr. Haga and Mrs. Woodside, you can correct me, they will not be sent home on the bus that day if they are waiting to be picked up with symptoms. So it's really important that you answer the phone when we call, or you have people ready, just knowing that if the school calls, I'm going to need grandma to go in and get my child from school that day, because we have limited space of where we can keep our children with symptoms. We're not wanting to, have a whole bunch of kids in the health office. We need to get them out and get them home so that we can figure out what's going on with each of them as soon as possible. So please just make sure your contact information's up to date. And I apologize in advance for the phone calls you may be getting. It's what we have to do this year just to make sure that our kids are staying healthy at school and that we're able to keep the school open.
Yep. And one note for all the families out there is Mrs. Buck is also the middle school nurse. So she is the one that will be helping us out with all, about 1,100 kids in the building. you have there. So like she said, set up a system with your families, with your support team that you have in your community, so that if you get that phone call, we can get those students picked up right away. We don't like the idea of having to have a student sit by themselves at a desk in an isolation room, but it's just what we have to do right now. And so really make sure that before we come back, you start to set up that support system that you have. Are you ready for the next slide? Bettina, are you done?
Yep, that was all for me.
Awesome. Thank you very much for joining us and sharing this very important information. Give it a second. Are there any questions in the chat, Allison?
There are not. We have gotten to them. One thing I guess I will just mention really quickly while we're on this Spanish slide is we also recommend, if your student is coming back hybrid, to start practicing your mask wearing now. So, you know, during the day, maybe for, you know, start off with 15 minutes, 30 minutes wearing the mask, because students are going to be wearing them a lot. So also start practicing with that now.
And when Miss Woodside says a lot, as of right now, there won't be a time in the day other than when they're eating where they won't have their mask on. And I just want to be very honest with all of our families that I know simply like, oh, well, in this district, they take them off when they're at their desk. In this district, they do that. Here in Grand Rapids Public, we are going to be as safe and follow as many of the precautions that the CDC, the health department have set forth. And so mask wearing is one of the things that we will be doing at all times except when eating. Do I have that correct? Ms. Buck and Ms. Woodside?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. I saw that chat number go up. Was that a question?
Yes, actually, and maybe Ms. Fotini, you want to answer this. So we have a great question of, can students use any type of mask, or do they have to be surgical masks, like the medical grade?
They do not have to be surgical masks. They can be the cloth ones, but I recommend ones with the straps over your ears. They have found that the gaiters that you just pull up of your neck are actually not as effective. I don't know if our district has an official no against using those, but I would recommend getting your child either one that can tie around the back of the head or has the straps behind the ears.
Yep. And to go over that, I know that in my child's district, the gaiters have to have 2 layers, and that's kind of the mandate across it all. Is if you have a mask, it has to have at least 2 layers, no more bandanas, no more of those plastic ones that are exposed everywhere. Just, it has to cover all those portions of your face. And just for parents' knowledge, we do have extra masks. We do have mask lanyards for students that are coming in hybrid. So that way, when they're eating lunch, it just kind of hangs from their neck, just like the teachers' lanyards with their things. We have a lot of things set up. So that way, if you do go out and purchase masks, they're not wasted. We can't promise they're not going to come home dirty. They're 6 to 10-year-olds. But we're going to do our best to make sure that they stay clean and things like that. But we do have extras in the event that they're on the playground, it falls off, or they spill their milk, or, I mean, I've done it before where I'm taking a sip of something with my mask on and it's just everywhere. I'm sure we'll have kindergartners that do that as well. And so just know that we will be prepared for all that as well.
And another great question, if a student has a face shield in addition to a mask, can they bring that to school? Absolutely, please do. I think that's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. So thank you for that question.
All right, so Grand Rapids Public Schools will implement a daily student health screening requirement. And before I get to this, I want everyone to know that the teachers, staff, Ms. Woodside, Ms. Buck, we have to do a similar screener every single day when we come in the building. We have to look for those symptoms in ourselves every day we come in the building. And if I wake up one morning and I have a runny nose or a cough, I'm not allowed to come in the building either. So I just want that to be clear, that it's not just for the students, it's for everybody. So in accordance with guidance from the Kent County Health Department, a daily symptom screener will be completed for all students. So it'll look much like this. You'll fill out your student's first name and last name. You'll click Burton Elementary, please, not middle school. And then it'll be 4 short questions about, do you have any of these symptoms? Have you been exposed to anybody? Have you traveled outside the country within 14 days? It'll be just 4 quick questions with your information, and that information will only go to a spreadsheet that is seen by Ms. Woodside, Mrs. Buck, and myself. It is not going to be anything that goes anywhere beyond the three of us. And it is something that the three of us will follow up on. So we highly encourage that if you choose to come back hybrid, you fill this out every single day in the morning. I know I have to do one for my kids in their district. And so, you know, sometimes you forget, that's okay. We'll go quickly check on them. But the easiest way to make sure that your students don't have to be quickly asked questions is if you just fill this out every morning. I know I have mine saved as a bookmark on my phone. I know all around the school, you'll see, for staff, at least, they have QR codes, which is probably something maybe we could put on Seesaw. We could create a QR code.
Yep, we can put it on Dojo and we can put it on Seesaw as well.
Yep, and we can do daily announcements. That way it's a quick reminder, ooh, click this before I send my student to school. But this will be something that is required as well.
And so this is just the same information, just in Spanish for those of you who need it. And again, we will be publishing this video afterwards, so you can always review it if you need to as well.
Yep. To answer that question about hand sanitizer, we do have classroom things of hand sanitizer. If you feel like you want your student to have their own hand sanitizer, you may have them bring it and put it in their backpack. But we currently have big jugs in each and every classroom, and the district has promised that those will be refilled as needed. But you know, we are going to promote hand washing as much as possible. We will be teaching and learning all about hand washing prior to coming back, but also when we're back, before, after recess. But yeah, the hand sanitizers will be good for those quick little, well, I just did this activity, I'm going to quickly hand sanitize before I go to the next activity as well.
All right, so if a student tests positive or is a close contact, and of course, Mrs. Buck, if you want to chime in here at any time, let me know. So number one, keep your student at home if they or an immediate family member tests positive or has been identified as a close contact to an individual who tested positive. You should also then, number two, immediately notify our school, let Burton know, and we will let the nurse know, or you can call our nurse directly. Number three, we then will encourage you to follow guidance from your healthcare provider, and also you will get guidance from our nurse. And then number four, if a student or staff member tests positive or is a close contact, a communication will be sent via email, text message, and posted to our webpage within 24 hours. And I don't know if Ms. Buck, you would like to add anything to that.
Well, the only thing I will add is just know that if your child is positive, or if their teacher is positive, we won't be sharing that personal information with their name out in those messages. It will just say a student tested positive. So you don't have to be worried that all your personal information will be going out. This is just for the safety of the school and for the whole district to know, so we can keep an eye on how many cases we have in each school. And it's posted to the website just so that the community has access to and the district can quickly see how our numbers are looking in the school.
Yep. Here it is in Spanish. In addition to that, I just want to share that it is not necessarily a bad thing. Don't feel bad if someone in your family contracts COVID, or it is your student, or it is you. It's not a shameful thing at all. It's going to happen. It has happened. It's going to continue to happen. And so be as open and honest with us as possible. Again, like Mrs. Buck said, none of your information will go beyond the three of us here. It will all be a student, a staff member, just to give you some peace of mind.
And also, just to add on to that, remember the same thing that Mr. Haga mentioned earlier, is that attendance rules are going to look a lot different this year too. So, you know, if your student has to stay out for an extended period of time, that's not going to count against them. If they're not feeling well, again, please keep them home. And Burton is here to support all of you. You know, for all of us, this is very different, and it takes a lot of effort, and it can be very stressful, but we're all here to support each other.
Yep. And I know one question has been, if I choose hybrid and my son or daughter is quarantined, what will their learning look like then? That is something that we are continuing to develop. because let's say cohort A gets quarantined, well, cohort B can still come into school with our cleaning protocols. And so we will work that out, but I can assure you, you will still have a fantastic form of virtual learning that we currently have here at Burton as well. So this is just an example of that student letter to re-emphasize and show that there is no personal information in this. It says, yesterday we learned that a Burton Elementary student has tested positive for COVID-19. Below are some items that you need to know regarding the situation. Burton Elementary is cleaned daily and will continue to be sanitized. As long as you remain symptom-free, you can continue working or learning in the building. No individuals are identified as meeting close contact criteria, and so on and so forth. So as you see, those words with all caps are the only identifying information that's there, and that is just the school name, and that's about it. I'll show you the Spanish version as well.
So of course, we would send an English and Spanish version of the letter.
And then if there happens to be close contacts, it just switches a little bit saying all of the close contacts have been notified and quarantined. Okay, is this you or me, Allison?
I can go for it. So we do a lot. Mr. Haga and I do a lot together. So mask expectations and processes. So our return to learn plan includes the expectation that we have already mentioned that students must wear a mask at school. And this is for themselves and for others and our community. If a student is not able to tolerate a mask due to a documented condition by their doctor, we are highly recommending that they consider virtual instruction because their health condition does put them and others in a high risk category. So in the event that despite a documented health condition, you are still going to select hybrid in-person instruction, we will take the following actions to accommodate the request. And some of those accommodations are a face shield. There are different mask styles, acrylic dividers in the classroom. We might take a look at their schedule, establish break times, increase their social distancing from other students. But again, really, if a student needs this accommodation, we really are recommending that they stay virtual for their own safety and the safety of others as well. So to the right of this slide, you can kind of see it. You can see a flow chart. And again, this is something that you'll be able to look back on if you want to see this again. But it just states that if a student does have an existing condition, what steps we will follow. And if they do not, what documentation and what steps we'll follow as well. I don't know if Mr. Haga or Ms. Buck, you would like to add anything.
I'll start a conversation for us. So Ms. Buck, what would be, would asthma be a pre-existing condition that would allow me to not wear a mask if I'm a parent that has asthma? Because I know we've had some parents say, well, my kid has asthma, so he can't wear a mask.
No, I wouldn't say that asthma is a condition that does not let a child wear a mask. Mm-hmm. It really is on the child's tolerance. So things where a child has sensory issues, different levels of the spectrum of autism, things like that, where they're already having some educational like 504 plan or IEPs already established, then I think we would say they just can't handle that touching their face all day long. It's too distracting. They just like, it's constantly pulling their attention away from their education. It's too much. All right, we'll work with you, but we'll also be working, I think, really importantly, practicing, because kids are so resilient and they want to be there. So if we are showing them by example the proper ways to wear a mask, then they will follow suit and they'll mimic what we do. It's good to practice even starting now. Mrs. Woodside brought this up earlier. If your child has a tough time keeping the mask on, just do it 5 minutes every day starting now, then next week 10 minutes every day. They'll get used to it, and kids really, they'll put it on, then they'll forget they have it on, and they'll go about their day, because that's just what kids do. They're so quick to adapt to, just they want to be there and learn and have fun with their friends. So the mask, I think, if they really are having an issue, let us know, because we want every kid to get the best education, just like you. And if the mask is causing so much of an issue, then we'll start working on it now with you, so that we can help them in the situation of school.
Thank you. So whether you are in person or hybrid, in-person school breakfast and lunch will be provided. For in-person learning. If you're choosing to come back hybrid, you will get SAC breakfast and SAC lunch. The breakfast will be in the classroom. There will be a little bit different of arrival procedures, which we'll explain in a later video when we get a little more idea of when we're starting back in hybrid. It will look differently. The playground will be closed, just to give you an idea, but your school breakfast will be in a SAC and will be in the classroom. Lunch, we have set up the cafeteria, socially distanced, 6 feet away. It will also be SACed lunch, but will be provided every day. And then for those that that are choosing to go virtual, there will still be the grab and go meals Monday through Friday from 12:30 to 1:30 at every school. We want to make sure everybody has a meal to eat. And so just so you know, there will still be meals for everybody. You're on mute.
Just realized that. I love that the screen reminds me. So just some technology reminders from here until December 17th. If you have any technology issues, please continue to call 301-1111. If you need help with logins and things like that, please reach out to the teacher or Mr. Haga or myself. We are always happy to help. But if it's something with how the iPad actually functions or your computer actually functions, or you need to swap out your device, change your device, please call 301-1111. If and when we come back to school, again, Mr. Haga and I will do a separate presentation to talk about what that will look like. But for now, we will stick with the same help number that we have been using.
Again, we will post this video on all of our platforms and send out a link to the slideshow. So if we're going a little bit too fast or you're worried about missing something, you'll be able to come right back to it. Transportation, I know that was a question. Transportation letters and rapid bus passes will be eligible for students beginning the week of December 7th. The new transportation hotline, if you have a question, is 819-6100. For elementary students, I know at Burton Elementary, we only have 2 buses. And so this might not impact many of you, but if you happen to be on a bus, you will be required to wear masks. There will be assigned seats, 6 feet social distancing. The drivers will have seating charts completed prior to the first day, so your student will know exactly where they're supposed to sit. The first 2 seats on both sides of the bus will remain empty. There will be social distancing, and if there's siblings, regardless of grade level, they will be required to be seated together. Again, like I said, I have a kindergartner and first grader. Usually it's kindergartners are at the front getting help and everyone else in the back. They have to sit together. That's just the way to keep everyone in the household, keeps the whole cohorting process simple and safe. This doesn't impact many of our families, so I'm going to kind of just keep going. I can go. So this is a big one for multiple reasons. One, there is a lot of information coming out from the district right now, from the district, from Burton Elementary, from Burton Middle, whatever school or portion of Grand Rapids Public you are participating in. There's a lot of information coming out. And if you don't have your up-to-date contact information, maybe one time you hit ignore or you blocked it because you were frustrated getting so many, That's what it has in the system. And so you can either log into your parent view and click on these consents and re-enroll, call the school, but we highly suggest that you make sure that you're getting those text messages, you're getting those emails, you're getting those phone calls. I know at times it can be a lot, and Alice or Ms. Woodside and myself often talk about, are we sending too many messages? Are our parents getting 10 different messages, and which one's the most important? And so sometimes we refrain, but sometimes it just is really important. And so please, please, please make sure you're opting in on all those consents. You can get those. If you haven't ever gotten a robocall, call the school, tell Ms. Hoke that, Ms. Christine that. We need to make sure you're getting robocalls. If you haven't ever gotten a text message, we need to make sure you're getting those. If you have an email and you've never gotten an email, let's make sure we have your right email on file. It is so very important that we're able to communicate with you guys in many different ways. Like Ms. Buck said, if there happens to be a case or close contact, you need to know that you're not going to be able to come to school for 2 weeks. If there happens to be a situation where, let's take December 17th, where you're going to find out if we're coming back to school on January 4th or not. It's important that you know that and you don't hear through social media. And so we really want to make sure all those consents are up to date. And like Ms. Buck said as well, emergency contacts are huge. Make sure that we have your emergency contacts. So if something does happen, we have a way to get your students. I know in the past, our front office has been kind of crowded with students. Parents might be 10, 15 minutes late. We get it. That's not going to be able to happen anymore. Students are going to have to wait outside or in the lobby, social distancing. And so it's important that we have those emergency contacts to make sure everybody's safe.
One question that is in the chat that I think is important is someone has asked, if students have the district iPad at home, will they have to bring that into school for hybrid in-person learning? The answer is yes. Again, we will go into more detail when we have a follow-up parent meeting in December. But as of right now, yes, if they have a district iPad at home, they will be bringing that into school.
Yeah, to expand on that, students will be bringing their iPads to school and home daily. Like we've talked about, we might get a phone call from a parent at 10 o'clock at night, or a message at 10 o'clock at night saying, my test just came back positive. And as soon as we get that, we need to make sure we're calling and communicating with all the families. So you need to make sure you have your iPad at home, because you won't be allowed back in the building. And so, yes, to answer your question, you'll be bringing them in and taking them home every day. You do not need to bring the chargers in every day, though. Correct, Allison?
That is correct.
Those stay with you.
Yep, chargers will stay home.
Is there another question or no?
There is not. We can continue.
Okay. So again, it says there's a link here. Obviously, you can't click the link because I'm sharing my screen, but when we send this out, we will also attach these links. It goes straight to your parent view account. You'll enter your last name, and you'll be able to do it. But we'll make sure when we post this, maybe Allison, we can post these in the comments in the videos.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. All right, so the district has created a metrics dashboard. Now, I will fully admit this is a little confusing at first, but I'll do my best to explain it. So the district is using all the data that they can get from the Kent County Health Department, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Safety, as well as the CDC. They are using science and data to make their decisions. Right? So in order to decide if we are going to move back to in-person learning, they are looking at a positivity rate. So I'm looking over here, that first box where it says county positivity rate, and they're looking for under 5%. For GRPS incidences, so that means how many students or staff currently have COVID-19. They want it to be between 1 and 5 cases. Per 100,000. So that's not just 1 in 5 at Burton, it's per 100,000, which we don't have 100,000 people in the district. So we can do that. County incidents per 100,000, that's a Kent County stat. And again, per 1 million, that's looking at Kent County. Now this is a lot of information here, but I want to give you an idea of what that looks like currently. So we took the information from November 13th, from all the dashboards that the district is looking at. And this is currently where we're at. If we look at that third column, so currently we to return to learning in person, we'd want to be under 5%. On November 13th, we're at 13%. We'd want to be in GRPS between 1 and 5 cases. We're at 0 because we're not in person. So there aren't any cases because we're not there. County incidents, we want to be between 1 and 5. We're at 102. And then county incidents per million, we want to be under 7 or around 7, and we're at 721. So I'm not showing you this to say we're very far off. We need to make sure that as a community on the Southwest side, as a county as a whole, we are following the restrictions that we have if we want to get our students back in school. As you can see, these numbers are scary. I know that I don't leave my house unless I'm going to work. My kids, I play football in the front yard with them as much as I can, but you know, we're doing the best that we can. I know it's not easy for everybody. Reach out to us here at Burton. We have KSSN, we have Arbor Circle, we have DHS, we have Cherry Health. Burton Elementary School is set up to support you and your families. And so please, 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 if there's anything that's a barrier to supporting you during COVID-19, let us know. Allison, do you want to expound upon that?
And the only thing that I was going to say is if we, either way, if we come back or we don't come back, we are here to support you, like Mr. Haga was saying. And if you're, still struggling with technology, honestly, if you have lost your job and you are struggling with paying for things at home, a lot of people have lost their jobs. My husband lost his job. So I do understand, we do understand how hard all of this has been on everybody. So really anything you need, we are here to help and support. Where you can reach us through Dojo, you can call the school hotline, like the school office line. There are lots of ways to communicate with us. Sometimes it may take us a little bit longer to get back to you because we have so many people that we are trying to reach out to, but really we are here for you. And we want to make sure that your students are safe and that your families are safe, and that you're learning as much as you can.
Yep. So the last thing I have about this dashboard is that it will be, I don't know if it is currently, but I believe starting next week or after the holiday break, this will be on the GRPS website every day, ready to go. So if you're ever curious about where we're at, and I'm pretty sure they're going to update the daily numbers maybe every other day or something, so you can really get a good idea of where we're at. That, the idea is that we're transparent and you can know where we're at as much as we do. And I want to be honest with everybody when I say that Mrs. Woodside and myself, we can't tell you, we don't have a secret in the back of our minds that know what's going to happen next week that we're just not allowed to share with you. We really are living this COVID-19 educational world day by day, just like you guys are. Mrs. Buck is constantly changing our protocols and letters and procedures day to day based on what the trends are. And so just keep in mind that we're all in this together and that there's nothing that we're waiting to share with you till we think it's ready. We honestly don't know, right? Governor Whitmer just had an address. I don't even know what she said because we're right here, but I'll find out. And if it's important, we'll make sure to share it with you guys. But other than that, our presentation is over with. But we just wanted to open it up for any questions that anybody might have.
And you can type in the chat. John, did we invite people to unmute the last time we had this?
We sure did.
Yeah, so if you prefer just to unmute and ask a question, please feel free to do that as well. I know we have a question, when are they going to open the office? Cuando van a abrir la oficina? Sorry, I'm used to translating. So the office will open potentially, we are closed through December 4th. But again, really this is going to be up to the governor. If that is extended or not, we will communicate with families as soon as the office has opened. But please, please, please feel free to still call the office and leave a message if you need to contact us. You can also send messages through Facebook, through Class Dojo, and actually I even believe Seesaw has messaging as well. So there are lots of ways that you can communicate with us.
Yeah, so to go over that at the very beginning of the slide, we had showed the current orders by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services or Safety, sorry. And it said work remotely if at all possible. And so again, the district is doing everything it can to keep students and families safe. And so all of the GRPS buildings are currently closed, but we have access to our emails, we have access to our phones, so please use those.
Any other questions? And if you think of a question later on, remember this will be on our Facebook page, and there will also be a link to YouTube, so you can always comment on the video on Facebook on our Burton Elementary page, or leave a comment on the YouTube video, and we will share the links for you tonight or tomorrow morning.
All right, well, if there aren't any more questions, we've been on for an hour and a half together, which is amazing. Thank you all. I've noticed that we've constantly had around 60 members, including our virtual family over in Facebook. So thank you all so much for joining us. We miss you. We are here for you. Feel free to reach out, but you guys can log off if you'd like.
Thank you everyone for being a part of this.